My name is Marcus Livingston. On March 12th, 2025, my life changed forever. It started like any ordinary morning. I was driving along the coastal highway, windows down, feeling the ocean breeze. But in a split second, everything turned to chaos. A truck swerved into my lane. I remember the screech of tires, a violent impact, and then nothing. No pain, no sound, only silence. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my car. I was floating weightless, suspended in a sea of light. Below me, I could see my body pinned inside the wreckage. Emergency responders were working frantically, but their voices seemed distant, muffled, as if I was behind an invisible wall. Suddenly, a presence filled the space. I didn't see him at first, but I knew it was him, Jesus. The atmosphere changed. There was authority in the silence, but also compassion. His voice wasn't loud, but echoed inside my soul. Marcus, you are not done. You must warn them. A wave is coming. As he spoke, images flashed before my eyes, scenes of a massive tsunami swallowing coastlines, cities crumbling under walls of water. But Jesus wasn't just showing me the disaster. He was showing me the signs. 7 signs, he said, that would precede this calamity. 7 warnings the world must watch for. He didn't list them right away. Instead, he told me to listen carefully, because these signs wouldn't be obvious. They'd be subtle, hidden beneath the noise of daily life. I was terrified. The urgency in his tone wasn't like anything I had ever felt. This wasn't a distant prophecy for a future generation. This was for now. As I stood there, floating in the light, he said, "The sea will rise without warning, but my people will not be caught off guard if they are watching." In that moment, the visions began. Vivid, overwhelming, yet so precise. The visions came in waves, crashing over me with clarity and weight. Jesus didn't simply tell me the 7 signs. He immersed me in them. Each sign was a scene, vivid and haunting, unfolding before my eyes. The first sign was a silent ocean. I stood on a beach, watching the waves withdraw unnaturally far. The water didn't roar or crash. It vanished into an eerie stillness. People stood along the shore, oblivious, taking selfies and laughing, unaware that the absence of sound was their final warning. Jesus whispered, "The silence before the surge will fool many." The second sign was unrest beneath the surface. I saw fish, whales, and sea creatures thrashing violently in shallow waters. The ocean itself seemed convulsed, as if something deep below was awakening. Jesus said, "The earth will groan beneath their feet, but their ears will be closed." The third sign was confusion in the skies. Storms would gather where there should be calm. Strange cloud formations twisted like serpents, and lightning forked across clear blue skies. Scientists and experts argued on news channels, offering explanations that fell hollow. Jesus said, "They will explain away the signs with earthly wisdom, but my warnings are not of this world." The fourth sign was the trembling of man-made structures. Skyscrapers swayed subtly, bridges creaked, and buildings shuddered, not from earthquakes, but from an unseen force beneath the oceans. People called it infrastructure fatigue, but Jesus said their pride will be their downfall. What they build on shifting sands will not stand. By this point, I felt overwhelmed. My heart was racing, as if I could feel the weight of every unheeded warning pressing on my chest. But Jesus wasn't done. The fifth sign was the rise of false comfort. I saw influential leaders, both spiritual and political, standing on platforms declaring peace and safety. They spoke of technological advancements, global unity, and environmental triumphs. Crowds cheered. Jesus said, "When they shout peace, the wave is already in motion." The sixth sign was a mocking of prophets. People laughed at those who tried to warn. I saw street preachers being ridiculed, videos of prophetic warnings going viral, not in reverence, but as jokes. Jesus' voice grew heavier. The watchmen will be mocked until the waters are at their doorstep. Finally, the seventh sign was the sound of sirens, but too late. I heard alarms blaring in coastal cities, but they weren't alarms of preparation. They were alarms of chaos. Roads jammed, people panicked, but the wave had already risen beyond the horizon. Jesus said, "They will scramble in the final moment, but their delay will be their undoing." I stood there, trembling, as Jesus looked at me with eyes that saw through time itself. Warn them, Marcus. These seven signs are not hidden. They're unfolding now. Before I could speak, the visions faded into darkness. But the weight of the message remained, pressing into my soul like a burning brand. When the visions ended, I was left standing in a void, no sounds, no sights, only the overwhelming presence of Jesus still beside me. His voice pierced the silence once more, but this time it wasn't about the signs. It was about us. Marcus, the wave is not just water. It is spiritual. Those words echoed through my soul, unraveling what I thought I knew about the coming disaster. This wasn't only about nature's fury. This was about the hearts of people, about pride, deception, and a world lulled into false security. Jesus lifted his hand, and suddenly I could see millions of souls all across the globe, standing on shorelines of their own making. Some stood on sands of wealth, others on platforms of fame, others clung to religious traditions, but none of them saw the wave forming in the distance. I cried out, "Lord, how can they not see it? You've given them seven signs." He looked at me with a sorrow that words cannot contain, because their hearts are anchored to the earth, not to me. Then, in a heartbeat, the scene changed. I was shown the true tsunami, a sweeping tide of deception. It wasn't just water rising, it was ideologies, movements, and lies presented as truth. They looked beautiful, enticing even, like a shimmering veil being draped over the minds of men. This is the wave that will sweep them away before the waters ever touch their cities. I saw families divided, not by disaster, but by distraction. People glued to screens, leaders promoting false peace, churches more interested in applause and repentance. The wave was spiritual blindness, drowning souls in comfort and complacency. Then Jesus showed me a remnant, scattered across nations, standing on solid rock, lifting their voices in intercession. Their eyes were open, their hearts burning with truth. These were the watchmen, the intercessors, the hidden ones who wept while others laughed. The tsunami cannot be stopped, but those who stand on the rock will not be moved. I wept as I saw waves crash against them, yet they stood unshaken, not because they were strong, but because they were rooted in him. Then Jesus turned to me and said something that seared into my spirit. The signs are for them, Marcus. For those who will listen, you must speak, even if they mock. Warn them, even if they scoff. The signs are not to frighten, but to awaken. It wasn't about the date. It wasn't about predicting the hour. It was about the posture of hearts, about readiness, not timelines. As the visions faded, I felt his hand rest on my shoulder. Go back, Marcus. Go back and tell them. Some will hear, some will awaken. That is enough. Then, in an instant, I was pulled back into the heaviness of my earthly body, gasping for air, feeling the weight of this commission as tears flooded my eyes. I opened my eyes back in a hospital bed, but it wasn't just my lungs that were gasping for breath. It was my soul. I could still hear his words reverberating inside me. The signs are not to frighten, but to awaken. Nurses and doctors were bustling around me, their faces relieved that I had come back, but they had no idea what I had seen. The images were imprinted in my mind. Cities unaware, families distracted, waves of deception rising as most people slept through the spiritual alarms. But there were still those 7 signs. I didn't know how much time remained, but I knew that every day, somewhere on earth, one of those signs was already unfolding. I sat up slowly, feeling the heaviness of my mission, knowing that this wasn't just about saving lives from water. It was about saving souls from eternal drift. In the days that followed, I couldn't stay silent. Every conversation became an opportunity. Every message I shared felt like a seed being thrown into a storm. Some people brushed me off, saying I was just traumatized. Others looked at me with concern, as if I had lost my mind. But a few, just a few, listened. They asked questions. They wanted to know about the signs. They wanted to know how to prepare. And to each of them, I said the same thing Jesus told me. Stand on the rock. Do not anchor your life to the things of this world. Stay awake. Stay in prayer. The signs are not to scare you, but to call you home. Because it was never about the tsunami of water. It was about the tsunami of deception that would sweep away hearts unanchored in truth. I realized then that even if the world wouldn't listen, I was still called to speak. The wave may be inevitable, but for those who would hear, for those who would watch the signs and respond, they would not be swept away. That's why I'm sharing this now. I wasn't sent back to predict dates or stir panic. I was sent back to remind you that the signs are already here. You must choose where you'll stand, on the shifting sands of this world or on the immovable rock that is Christ. Because when the wave comes, only those on the rock will remain.